pamoja.
Alright, good morning Majo Mona Lisa, good morning. Ikiwa ni Sunday zimegonga dakika 8 all the way hadi mwendo wa saa 6 kamili. It's a lovely Friday ukiwa nami ya Njogu.
Tuko mbele pamoja.
Okay, my name is Carol Radul. I have been in radio for almost 25 years.
I'm Olivia Otieno. I'm the host of 00 Direct on Spice FM every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.
I work in Radio Maisha as a mid-morning show host. I work from Monday through Friday from 10 in the morning until 12 noon. It's a Swahili radio show basically.
I got into radio because of my voice. When I started out in the media, I was actually doing TV game shows. I don't know if you remember Omo Pick a Box. Maybe you weren't born yet. But because of my voice, I was working with a cameraman who one day told me that KBC are looking for newsreaders and told me to go for a voice test. So I went for a voice test, they hired me, I started reading the news.
My radio journey is incredible because I started off actually on a TV show in 1996 as a teen reporter while I was still in high school. I was going to study medicine, and that was my path up until the 1998 bomb blast, my last day volunteering at Nairobi Hospital. That changed my whole outlook on what my future should be. So what to do then? I was approached by a scout for family radio and family TV to try out for media. And it wasn't my passion. It wasn't what I wanted to do with my life. But I tried it out, and soon I was hosting 2 radio shows on family. Following that, I moved on to KISS 100, where I started off hosting 1 a.m. to 5 a.m.
When I was in school, I was good in languages, both in Swahili and English. And some of my teachers noticed that. And so they kept saying, you can do journalism, you can do mass communication. But some of my family members were not too sure about that, especially one of my uncles. But when I completed my 4th form, it was a bit clear that you're not going to do law and you'll have to do mass media. And that's how I came to Nairobi to do a diploma in mass communication. And at the end of the day, I ended up doing radio. But I did everything generally, radio, TV, print. But the job that I got at that particular point was in radio. So I had to settle for radio presentation.
I evolved, worked for Reuters and then BBC. The beauty about the BBC is you do radio, when you're working for BBC World Service, you do radio and TV. So that was a bit more exciting because I would get to do radio features. I'd go and cover refugees in Kakuma camp and do features on that. The famine in Sudan, do features on that. So that was that I could put on my creative boots as well. And do radio stories, do radio news stories. And then somewhere along the way, I got hired by Radio Africa as a newsreader and a reporter. So grew from there. I was doing news, I was doing all news. When you work in a newsroom, you do everything. You don't specialize in any. But luckily when I was at Reuters, I did business news, I did political news. At BBC, we did social news, regional news on refugees in the region and stuff like that. Post-genocide, post-Rwanda genocide, famine in South Sudan.
Moving on from Graveyard, I hosted the mid-morning, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., Monday to Friday, and developed a concept called 2 for 2 in Love, where I'd share love songs and messages from one to another, and those are the 2 in love, sometimes trying to heal their pain, sometimes acknowledging their passion, sometimes just saying, I appreciate you. And that won me a Chagua Latinis Award. I left and moved to Canada, where I studied radio and television, and when I came back, I hosted Catwalk Kenya on Mnet. That was a very, very interesting journey with a different crew, with foreigners and with different work ethics. And it really taught me the importance of being prepared, the importance of planning, and the importance of proper execution. After Catwalk Kenya, I moved back into television on another television show and another local broadcaster, but then radio came calling once again. And I joined as head of radio at 1FM, That's where I discovered talent like Nonini as a radio presenter, Nick Mutuma as a radio presenter. I developed Adele's skills as a radio presenter, Miss Mandy, and so many, many more.
I was a huge sports fan. I just used to watch football on the weekends. And then somewhere along the way, when Radio Africa were looking for someone to do a sports show on a Saturday, which was, I think, 2006, they asked me if I'd be interested. And at first, I just joined as Maina Kageni sidekick. He would run the show, and I would just laugh and say, "I love Arsenal." And then, yeah, after Maina left, I took over that show, and as they say, the rest is history.
I went back to Family Media, where I was again now head of radio. Imagine starting off in a company as an intern and then going back as the head of the station. It was a fantastic experience. From there, I ventured into other forms of work. I went into the NGO space, I finished my master's, and I developed my communication skills as the head of communications for Solar Aid across Africa. I represented 5 African countries, and it was really an interesting journey because part of what I was doing there was media training. And I would train the staff in different countries on how to engage with press, how to deliver their products to the people, and also how to make sure they're visible across different media platforms, radio, television, and print. Following that, most recently, I was head of radio at Nation FM. And that was a very interesting journey because it was a huge transition for me, moving from where I was in hospitality back into media and running a radio station.
The consumption of current affairs for me is key and has made sure that I am relevant in the industry. I think with time also, I grew my brand. I was able to know what I want to do a bit earlier on in my radio career. And that way, people are able to identify you for what you do and for who you are. So you find that you stand out a bit earlier as compared maybe to somebody who's still looking out for themselves. Who am I? What do I want to do? Do I want to be an entertainment radio presenter? Do I want to address issues on gender, issues on environment? So clearly, I set my brand a bit earlier, and I had to stick out a bit earlier in my career.
Along the way, I also realized that you can use radio for change. Because before radio was effectively for news and music. But somewhere along the way, I realized you can use radio to push agendas, to push, and not necessarily political agendas, but to push, to tell people about health issues, to tell people about what concerns are going on in the society, I realized that radio is not just for me who's speaking to you. Radio is for you to use me to tell me what's going on in your world, So I realized the power of radio in that instance. So content-wise, it's changed a lot. Technically, as well, we're very advanced. Right now, we can do a radio show on our phone, We've got the podcasts. We've got radio has really opened up to be anywhere you are. Now I can listen to radio on my phone. Before, you literally have to have, where's my radio? I have another old radio, So before you had to have a radio to listen to radio. So even with the advancement of technology, of phones, of laptops, you can listen to radio anywhere. And because of podcasts, you can listen to radio anytime. So even technically, you've gone from having to have this big radio studio and this big desk and all that stuff to I can record on my phone and say I'm on radio. I can do a show and put on SoundCloud. That's like radio. So radio has evolved in so many ways. I wish we'd use it the right way, though. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't.
It's a very positive, very uplifting platform that gives people a voice that may not otherwise get it. For example, when you're thinking about financial experts, you wouldn't look to a woman, but I have female financial experts. When you think about cybersecurity experts, you don't instinctively jump to a woman, but I have female cybersecurity experts. Usually when it comes to gender, people think about reproduction, people think about breast cancer, but there's so much more that women offer in our society, from financial expertise, legal expertise, medical expertise, and also social expertise. Because let's understand one thing, there's no greater love than the love of a mother. And we talk about women and their role in society across all levels, be it as mothers, be it as sisters, be it as daughters, be it as employees, be it as employers, board members, leaders, and more.
In terms of cultures, Kenyans particular people in the world, not really Kenyans, we're very narrow-minded. We think about us and our world. Actually, Kenyans were more open-minded than, say, people in the United States, where they're only interested in news that's literally happening in their estate, you know. But news can be used for me finding out what's happening in your life. Where do you live? Where are you from? Oh, you're from Ukambani. So someone calls in from Ukambani and tells me about their challenges. I'm like, oh, so there's rain issues, there's drought, you can't do this, you can't do that. You can learn things about different areas on the radio. I like the fact that now Kenya, we have so many regional stations, you know. So you can go to Mombasa and find out what's happening in Mombasa. You can go to Kisumu and instantly find out what's happening in Kisumu. Where can I eat? Where can I do this? Where can I do that? You can go to Nanyuki and find out how a radio station there will be telling you about what's happening locally. Radio has also allowed us to embrace our cultures in terms of the language stations as well. When I started watching the Kenyan Premier League around, it was 2006, 2007 that time, I was at KISS, I was doing news and sports news on the radio. And one day, because I was doing the Saturday show and we used to only cover English Premier League, and I was like, okay, kwani Kenya doesn't have football, you know, I asked myself that question. So I found out where the Kenyan Premier League plays, who plays, and I took myself to the stadium. And the next morning, I did a story on Kenyan Premier League, and I did the results on Kenyan Premier League. No other journalist had ever done Kenyan Premier League sports news on sports.
Radio is still the most powerful medium across Africa for communication. Through radio, you can heal and you can destroy, especially on a societal level. With regards to gender equality and gender issues, I think that shows like OO Direct allow those who no longer have a voice in certain platforms to get their voice. When there are only men in a room, no one batters an eyelid. However, when there are only women in the room, something seems amiss. And why is that? We need to normalize female positive spaces. We need to normalize women in these spaces, and we need to normalize safe spaces for women. OO Direct has an audience that is 75% male. So even though as a woman, I only play music by women, I'm dressed by a woman, and I only host women, the topics and the conversations we have are cross-gender.
There are probably more female radio presenters than men. So I think things have changed from 15, 20 years ago when it was a male-dominated industry. There are women in every position in radio, even in management of radio. So in terms of radio, I don't think women are fighting for space anymore. I think we're taking over radio. Sports radio, women are also taking over. There are women even in the sports section. We can go to print and there's still so many women in the sports section. So I actually think women are taking over the media.
I feel that we need to normalize women in different roles. Even if it's military, if it's policing, if it's medical, if it's legal. One of the biggest challenges I faced was as a young woman starting out in broadcast, as I did when I was very, very young, no one took you seriously. You're always considered not as intelligent, not as focused, not as relevant. Whereas we've seen that we have young women billionaires, we have young women entrepreneurs, we have young women in development, we have young women in government.
I feel radio is a powerful tool, especially when it comes to equality issues. You know, for the longest time, we've been talking about women equality in workplaces, equality in wherever we are. And radio is a great tool because when you articulate issues on women, you're giving women a voice. And sometimes it becomes easier when you have a female presenter. I'm not saying that having a male presenter is not a good thing, but if you have a female presenter, I will understand the issues of women. I will understand the issues that affect women very quickly. I'll be able to articulate them in a better way, let me say that, in an easier way, and you get traction. Clearly, you get traction.
The biggest challenge I faced was people thinking this woman doesn't know what she's talking about. What do women know about football? I still get it today. Chicken, you know football. I'm like, we are many. They just don't have a mic, but we're so many women who love football, who love sport, who play, you know. So there was that challenge in the beginning that I was dismissed before I was even listened to. And it took time and guidance under Maina Kageni at the time, because I was doing the show with him, to tell me, Maina used to tell me, Radul, just focus on your content. Just know what you're talking about. And you're a fan, you watch every game you know. So it's people to actually listen and not dismiss before actually listening, because people just dismiss before they listen to you. So it took time to convince people to come to my side. Then I had to go through a period of them saying, Radul is the only woman who knows football. I'm like, no, I'm not. We are thousands in this country, you know, and now you've seen them evolve. So that was one challenge, that when it comes to sport, you're dismissed before you even get on the mic.
I believe that one of the biggest challenges is the bias that society places on women, that they are less than or they cannot achieve as much as.
Generally, as a woman in radio, it's a challenge for women in the workforce. I was in charge of the Radio Africa newsroom for about 8 years, and every time a woman comes, she's just given birth, or she's going through, we have medical issues that always need us to have a day off here, a day off there. And I found challenges. In fact, they used to say, we're so lucky we have a female boss, because even after you have your baby, there's those random days where you wake up and your child is sick and you can't go to the office, you know, or you get called to school, and it's always a woman who reacts faster, you know. Even if you have a husband, if your child is sick, your husband goes to work, you stay home and look after the baby, you know. So there are those, just the challenges of being a woman, and this is generally not even in radio. And then radio is even more unforgiving, because you have the shifts. I did what they call the graveyard shift for 8 years, where I'd report to work at 4 a.m. You know, my shift was 4 a.m. to 1 p.m. I'm sure if you talk to all radio morning presenters and morning, whether it's news or shows, it's challenging waking up at 4 a.m. Imagine telling your husband every morning, I'm waking up at 4 a.m., I'm going, and there's a guy over there who's our driver who's come to pick me up and take me to the office. It's just, some men would be like, okay, I'm uncomfortable with that, you know. Even your shifts, I'm uncomfortable with that. So the shifts, because radio is 24 hours. Your show can end at midnight. You're coming home at midnight, walking in the door, your husband is looking at you like, where have you been?
Right now, with the current trend in the promotion of the girl child, with the education of the girl child, and with the acknowledgement of the girl child, I feel some of those barriers have been lifted.
I think for me, the space that I'm in, radio space, is quite good and quite important. So any woman who gets that space, they should take it positively and use it to propagate equality among our workplaces and definitely wherever we are.
I think women are more inclined to use, once they have that voice, to use that voice positively. The guys seem to just, I don't know, tell jokes and no offense. But if you give a woman that position of power, she's going to make a change. I don't know any woman on radio who's not trying to change something. They all have a passion, whether it's awareness to cancer or it's awareness to sanitary pads. But if you speak to the ladies on radio right now, they have an agenda. I don't know if their bosses know. It's not a bad agenda. So power to the ladies. We're taking over radio. We've taken over radio.
I believe that radio is what you make of it. You have to understand your audience. At the end of the day, it is not about your personal interests. I remember when I was first starting out, because I'm a sci-fi loving, chess playing, you know, geek. And that really wasn't something that the audience I was broadcasting to would identify with, you know. So for me, also having grown up abroad and having a specific accent, getting to the point of winning Chaguo Latinis meant I had really identified with this audience. And for me, it was about understanding. It's not about me. It's not about what I like to read or what I like to watch or what I like to do. It's about them.
I feel I have a way of connecting with people on radio. I have some certain communication skills that get my audience to really open up to me. Even things they won't tell other people. Somebody will call you on air and tell you, Anjogu, you know what? There is something that I'm going through, and I tend to feel you're the only person that I can talk to. If I show you my inbox, Facebook inbox right now, my messages in DM, I get quite of so many of those cases that are a bit personal, because I feel I have some communication skills that make people really open up to me, and then they get a sense of, you know, confidence that when they tell me they'll be sorted. Their issues will be sorted.
So when it comes to me and radio, I think one of the things we have to understand is it's not about you being funny. It's not about you being smart. It's not about you showing off whatever it is you want to show off. It's about your audience. Are you leaving that show better for the people who heard it? Is it something that will actually impact their life, either to relieve the stress of the day, or to help them financially, or to help them grow, or to help them develop better relationships? Because if you're not answering those questions, then you really have no business being on air. Don't get into media, don't get into radio to be famous. Don't get into media, don't get into radio for shortcuts. So you don't have to stand in line, so you get freebies. So, get in there because you really have a passion for communicating with the people who are listening. And you really care about whatever it is that they're going through and how you can uplift and motivate and inspire them.
Especially for the young people who are coming on board right now. They've done mass media, they've done journalism. Some of them do this with the wrong reasons. You want to be on radio because you want people to hear you. You want to be on TV because you want millions to watch you. But ask yourself, what are you giving the society at the end of the day? Because it's not about you. Actually, as you work, you come to realize it's not about you. It's about the lives, for me, it's about the lives that are impact in the society. Like that segment, Yamsamaha, you bring people together. You bring a doctor in the studio, so people get healing. You bring business people in the studio. They impact financial knowledge in people. So at the end of the day, you're impacting lives. So the reason why some of them fall off the way in this career is because, first of all, you went to radio, you went to media with the wrong reasons.
Radio should be used to set agendas. It should just be used to set agendas that benefit people, not that benefit self. And unfortunately, a lot of radio, especially now being a political year, oh my goodness, guys, let's use radio for positive. It's good to use radio for the leaders who are campaigning to let us know what they stand for. But let's keep it positive, please, because there's such a thin line between entertainment and incitement, between information and incitement. So this challenge is to all the radio presenters. Yes, let's set agendas. Yes, let's use the power of the voice that we have for good. Don't be used. The problem with radio is it's live, and things can be said before you can stop them. So it's a huge responsibility that radio presenters have to steer the conversation for good.
We all have a responsibility for truth. We all have a responsibility to deliver the facts. I believe that there is a manipulation sometimes when people want to have shortcuts and people want to use platforms such as radio, which are broadcast platforms, to present a certain message or a certain agenda. Remember, radio is still in Africa one of the most powerful platforms and mediums. It can build and it can destroy. So I believe that as media personalities, as radio presenters, we have a responsibility to deliver the truth in an unbiased fashion, to allow all to be able to say what they need to say on the platform.
It's still going to take a while for us to push the gender equality issue in radio. We've made great strides. That's what makes me happy. That's why I say we've taken over. But we need to keep it this way. If we're not constantly pushing for positions in radio, at some point things will change. Now we're doing it consciously. We are conscious of hiring a woman. We're conscious of this. Unfortunately, in Kenya, we forget things very quickly. And after a while, if we don't keep our efforts up in trying to push the agenda of women in radio, somewhere along the way it's going to die down, it's going to die down. So unfortunately, we have to keep pushing to have women managing radio stations, women managing the content that goes out, women on air, talking about women's issues, And we have so many issues, whether it's health issues, whether it's issues in the home, whether it's all these things, and we need women who understand what we're going through to speak about it,
For me, I have women on my show who I believe benefit from having their voices heard, because a lot of these women did not hear many other women when they were growing up. The airwaves were dominated by the male voice, and the experts they had were primarily male. So saying yes to radio, saying yes to trust is really, really important, because at the end of the day, we must deliver content that is trustworthy, content that we know is honest, and content that we know will build and not destroy.